So with polishing the exhaust port, I started with these bullet-shaped grinding stones. The description of where I bought it really doesn't say what kind of grit it is, but here it is. You can see it on Amazon. It's $9.99. There's the name. Okay, so I started with that, and these are really good. They give you a lot of room for error, and you can basically take off just a little bit at a time, not gouging at all. So these were really great. Started with that. Then I have these bullet-shaped rubber tips, and I would dip them in this compound, and then I would use my I forget what it's called, little tool there, and spun it around, you know, and buffed that out. And then I went with a 240, then a 600, then an 8, then a 2000. And it got me to this point right here. So you can see the shininess. You can see the pits that are in there. I don't have a machine to machine this. It's all by hand, but it's pretty damn smooth. If you've done this before, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Like, it's a really smooth feel, and you see those pits, and they just kind of don't seem like they ever really go away perfectly. So that's my exhaust. Got it how I want it. Smooth all the way around. Worked about 45 minutes on it. That's the inside. Now I'm going to work on the intake. You can see how the intake's really rough. See that there? Flip it around. So I'm going to what I'm going to do is take one of those pink little bullet stone grinders and just level this stuff out, and then I'll take the compound with the rubber tip and bring that down a little bit more, and what it'll do is, you'll see afterwards, because I've seen it on the exhaust already, what it'll do, it'll bring that kind of the pitting down, and it won't polish it, but it'll smooth it out so there's still good aerosol, the fuel is aerosolized. And you can see some of those corners look kind of sharp too. I'm going to work all that out around too. I got about 15 miles on this head. This is the second one. This is the one they replaced with. And I'll show you some pictures that are probably a little bit better. But there's scratching going on with the skirt of the piston inside the head. And that's a huge concern. I'm thinking that could be why the other one blew up. See that scratch mark? Like I said, 15 miles on this. Look at that. Look at that scratching. There should be no scratchings on there. I really don't think this motor is going to last. Look at that. This is the back side, the exhaust side. What I'm going to do is, you know, and I've had a filter on it since day one, air filter. So that scratching, I don't see it as a final blow, you know, a final death kill, but I do see these sharp corners as something that maybe I can lightly round, you know, because it's catching my skin right there. That's not good, right? So let's go ahead and work on these edges a little bit, soften them up. So when it's going up and down, it doesn't dig in, you know. So that's what's going to be next after the intake. And I'll bring you back in after that. I worked away all those imperfections. And then when I was done, I went back to one of these little green-orange ones with the rubbing compound. And that's the result you see. Now, it's not smooth to the touch like the exhaust is. It did not go any farther with 800 or 2000 grit sandpaper. One thing I want to point out is that this part of the intake right here had a pretty good sized lip on it. And I ground that down to where it's fairly smooth, and then finish it off with the compound. So it's semi-rough in there. It's not really rough like it was before. But as you can see, all those pits and that flashing that was in there is all gone. If I can get my camera to focus. That looks pretty nice. Next, we're going to work on the transfer ports. You can see those are kind of gnarly. And if anything, if it's unsafe to reach in there with the stone grinder, I can get the polishing compound, and that can bounce around quite a bit and not do any damage because it is a rubber tip, and that's why I got it. So next I'm going to work on the transfer ports. As you can see, they got a little bit of aluminum shavings in there, but you can tell they're rough. See the edges? Yeah, you can see it pretty good right there. So that's going to be what I'm going to do next. Alright, you can see how that stone, along with finishing up with the polishing compound, cleaned off the flashing that was on that side and on that side. Looks a lot better. The polishing and cleaning up with the flashing on the head, I'm pretty much going to call that done. Now I have the head bolted on. And what do we see? I see an issue right here. If air is supposed to come down and then back up, there's a lip on both sides. Look at that. Right here. So I don't know if I want to take off that much material. That's quite a bit. Just gotta be careful to not chip it away. You know what I mean? The chrome lining. And with that sanding stone, it does a really good job. It does not chip away like those carbide bits do. Those things just eat into the metal quick. If flashing is an issue on the intake and on the exhaust, and that's, you know, a lip, this too is a lip. And this is something that it should not have came like that. So that's going to be next. On the new YD100s, if you're getting them new, they might have an overstock of the version 2s, but the one on my right is the 3. The one on my left is the 2. I made a bit of a mistake, and last video I showed you that I drilled the 15 millimeter deep, half inch wide hole on each side. I'm a little winded because I just got done hammering this bastard in there, but anyways, so I drilled out the version 2. One thing I didn't notice is that this does not go in there, but it fits in there. Oops, sorry. See? So all they did was, see if I can get it out, they just drilled the wrist pin arm hole, whatever. They just drilled it out versus that one. So I'm going to stick with the old one, seeing that I already got it in there. And I drilled the crank. And I do have an old bushing on the other motor. When it exploded, I don't think it was the bushing. I don't think this lasts as long as a wrist pin, needle bearing, but they're easy to change out if you had to. What I think was the problem was on the last one, it's like what I just showed you earlier. See the scratch marks? I think this thing is catching or some shit, dude. So, yeah, look at that. It's like 15 miles in a sucker. Where do those scratch marks come from? That's not supposed to be there. Anyways, and these are sharp. Really sharp. Look at that. You can gouge somebody's flesh with that sucker. It needs to be rounded off. I don't think it needs to be that damn sharp. So anyways, on the rebuild, I'm going to use the version 2, not the version 3. And the bushing, because I really don't have much option. I already got it drilled out. I ain't got time to mess with it. I'll rebuild that later when they start selling the heads separately, or maybe just put a reed valve YD on that one or something. It's still going to run with the bushing. It ran fine with the bushing before. Putting these back together, this in here, just squeeze them tight. It pops right in. This here, you got to put the cover on this side and then lay it on that side on some wood. Hit it with the mallet and go to town until the gear comes out that much. And how do I know? Because this one came from China. I didn't take this clutch assembly out. That's how it was set. So I just matched it up with that one. Because once you start hitting, all you can see it. The only place you can see is down in here. See if the bushing or the bearing has cleared yet or set in yet. And you can't see it. So, and you got to hammer it in. And then you just keep spinning it and make sure it's true. Okay. So that's that. Another thing about the version 3, that is a Allen. I have the key right here. Let me see what size it is. 5mm. And I guarantee you that batch is probably going to strip when you go take it out. Because, yeah. These version 2, version 3 here. Version 2 uses the bushing YD100. Version 3 uses the needle bearing ZMN100. Let me see if I can get you a measurement on this here. Hold on a second. So version 2, YD100 arm, 14mm hole. Alright. Version 3, ZMN100. And it has a 16mm hole. So since I destroyed the screw, beating it out of the hole here, I went to the hardware store and found a bolt that I could use. And I was looking around in a parts bag and I found this. And this, it's pretty much almost the same length as the one that came out of it. And it's okay too because the threads go pretty damn deep. So I don't know why they use a little short one. This one came off a crank arm. And the Allen key that you can put on there is bigger, much bigger than the 5mm. And because it came off a crank arm, you know this sucker is a lot harder. And it's not going to strip out because it's bigger. So I'm going to use this one with some red Loctite. Or maybe, yeah, with some red Loctite. Yeah, so the one it takes is an 8mm. And the one I showed you on the YD100 version 3 takes a 5mm, which is this size right here. So look at the difference. I obviously don't have the nut because it's on the motor, but you can put a little bit more torque on this. Not going to strip it out because it's not a little weenie one. Threads a little bit deeper. It's even got its own little cone washer on there, which I'm also going to put a little star washer on there. That's what it came with originally. And some red Loctite. And it actually threads in there perfect. It's the same pitch. I forget what it is. I think it's a M8 by 1 or 1 1/4. Don't quote me on that, but that's about what it is. So we're going to use this one and put it on the bevel gear. I really felt confident using a big 8mm, you know, sticking it in there and cranking it down. But it really felt good to tighten it down with the 8mm. Now the inside of the bevel gear, 19mm. This was, like I said, this Allen bolt came out of a crank arm. It came off of a crank arm, and it was the same thread. Matter of fact, I got another one right here. It is the same thread as the one that came out from China. Okay, so there it is right there. Pretty neat. You know, I had that sitting around and I was like, wow, I think that's going to work perfectly. And watch this. I don't even have the gasket on. It's flush. I was thinking with the hex head I was going to have to cut a hole here and just say, fuck it, you know. But I ain't got to do that now. And look, it even sits up a little bit. Well, a little more than a little bit, but it still clears. And so yeah, that's a pretty cool little addition to the video, is the Allen bolt that holds a crank arm. Man, I don't know what bike I pulled this off of. I really don't. It was just in a bag of bolts that I had sitting around. I think it's an M8 by 1 1/4. I really do. M8 by 1 1/4. And if you get one, that's the inner. That's as big as the washer part can be. So I got a spare here sitting around. I bought a spare just in case I had an issue. That's about how deep it is. I had to sand down the Woodruff key in there. Oh, that's another cool thing, is that this right here kind of presses, well, the washer in there does that too, but it kind of seals up that Woodruff key and just, it ain't going nowhere. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm going to cover up this side. I'm done. I'm going to flip it over next. Alright, so as we're installing the loop, I guess that's the loop and this is the magnet or the Magneto, however you call it. There's 3 things I do here. On the back side, if you buy one of these just by itself, it'll have varnish on it to keep it from rusting. I don't think this one did, but I went ahead with some heavy grit and sand it right here because it's going to make contact and you want it to ground really good. Second of all, everyone cuts the white wire. I leave it because basically for 2 reasons. One, it fills this hole really good to stop water from coming in. And 2, yeah, it's connected to the same place where the red wire is, right? So in theory, well, not really in theory, but you can just, I use shrink hose with the lighter, put it on there and just shrink it together like it's one. And to me, it's like more wire is better, right? So I just leave it. You can cut it. And number 3 on this, I love my hockey stick tape, man. I'm a hockey stick tape dude. And when I had it out, I taped it all the way up to here. And for 2 reasons, it gives you that clean look. It's all black. And for another reason, clogs the hole really good, so you don't get any moisture in there. No moisture, no problems, right? Let's go on to the next step. Installing your magnet. Don't forget your washer. Okay. And where's the magnet at? Damn it. Where did it go? Oh, duh. Stuck right there. Make sure your magnet's cleaned out. Because, you know, if you take it off and put it away somewhere, little pieces and fragments are going to stick to it. And I'm in the process of doing that. Now, when you go to put it on, when you go to put it back on, you see that keyway? It's pointing at, what, 11 o'clock? If you put it on that way, your bike won't run. You got to take it and put it on that way. It has a point to 1 o'clock. So that's how you know it's on right. Older bikes may be different. I've seen bikes that they were supposed to point to 11 o'clock. But, you know, those are older bikes. So I'm going to clean off this magnet some more and put it on and cover it up. I got the magnet on there. The nut's loose. I did file down the Woodruff key a little bit to get a little bit more top end out of it, if I can. Just a little experiment. You can see the slack. See the center bolt's moving a little more than the outside, and that's going to allow me to go left just a hair. See if I can retard it. You know, if you advance the timing, you're going to get more bottom end, but this motor has plenty of that already, so let me tighten this down and cover it up. Alright, so I took the piston before I put it on. See if this camera can focus for me. See how I rounded the corners? Again, I took that pink bullet stone sander on a Dremel and lightly rounded it. I did not take off a lot because, you know, the thinner you go, it's going to cause a weak spot, and where as it heats up, the thinner parts of the aluminum will expand first, and you don't want that. You want all the aluminum to be the same thickness, so when it expands evenly. But it doesn't feel sharp anymore. I even went in here and got the edges because they feel kind of sharp. But it's nice and smooth. I went with some 280, 600, and some 2000. Because like before, we should not see those scratches. See that one down there in the middle, up top? Those were there. Those were not there when I put the engine together. Just 15 miles. Somehow it scratched up like that. It must have been just, it was shooting out. Because I didn't do a port and polish. I didn't get all the flashing off of the ports. So that might have been some flashing that was in there that it just spit out. But, so, next step is to mount this on the piston arm and put the head on. So before we put it on, I went ahead and took the rings out, scrubbed it real good, make sure there wasn't any little pieces of aluminum in there. This is its current state right now. You can see that's done right. And on this pin, once I get it squared away, that's done right. So we're going to slide the bushing back on and mount it. I got the CW12s in there by Wiseco. I made sure to turn it past this little divot here to make sure the opening isn't right there. And it's the same on the other side. Now it's time to put the gasket and the head on.